So welcome to this presentation on data variables and levels of measurement. And I really refer you to this amazing chapter 8, Data Variables and Levels of Measurement, in this book, the Harvey book, the Research Guide, which is a primer. And so what I will be doing is giving you my summary of this chapter, but I do encourage you to read the chapter for yourself. So the outline of this presentation is I'm going to be talking about variables and I'm going to be talking about levels of measurement. So the variable is any characteristic or the number or the quantity that can be measured or counted, and the levels of measurement is the relationship among the values in a variable. So there's different types of variables. There's a predictor variable, a covariable, or an outcome variable, and there's different levels of measurement. There's categorical or there's quantitative. So predictive variables is a variable that is measured to discover whether it has an effect on the outcome being studied. And you might also see the word, it could be called a dependent variable or an explanatory variable or an exposure variable or an indicator variable, but here we're calling it predictor variable. And sometimes these variables are measured before the study begins, so it could be the sex or the age or the BMI, but sometimes the predictor variable is assigned as part of the study. So for example, you could have in a clinical trial, you could have a placebo, which would be one of the variables. The covariables, when you set up your design, you hypothesize that these might be relevant to the study, or else you know that they will be relevant to the study. And you think they're possibly going to be related to the predictor, and or the outcome variables. So you actually think they may be influencing either the predictor or the outcome variables. So it's important to assess these covariables, and you have to control for them when you're doing the data analysis. So covariables might include things like the sex or the age or the smoking or the level of physical activity, and these might have, as I say, they might impact either the outcome variables or the predictor variables. Your outcome variable, and it's also known as the dependent or response variable, so it's a bit confusing because they've all got different names in different places. But this is what you're most interested in. It's the response of interest from the potential cause that's being investigated. For example, if you're going to study how stress affects the human heart rate, the outcome variable is the heart rate and the predictor variable is the stress. Okay, the next thing I want to talk about is levels of measurement. So first let's talk about categorical levels of measurement. And so categorical are, as it sounds, these are categories. And there's different types of categories. So firstly, nominal. So nominal categories have no logical sequence. So it could be hair color, favorite brand of ice cream. There's no logical sequence to it. Dichotomous or binary, it's a special category, a special case of nominal categories where there are only two possible choices. So in your study it might be dead and alive, or in your study it could be rural and urban. So it really depends on what you're deciding to measure. Ordinal level of measurement is data that has an inherent ranking. So it could be a scale, or it could be differences between adjacent points. So for example, it could be the rate of level of satisfaction from 1 to 5 on a Likert scale. But there's always an inherent ranking. Okay, so the second level of measurement is quantitative, and these can be described by numbers, by numerical values. And so firstly, you're looking at discrete quantitative, and this would be, example, how many cars do you own if you're doing a survey? These are whole integer values, whole numbers. And then the other type of quantitative level of measurement is continuous. And this is where you have a full range of values. And so continuous measurements can either be ratio or interval. And the difference between these two is that the interval levels of measurement have no true 0 point. So for example, if you're looking at measurement of temperature in Fahrenheit or centigrade, there's no true 0 point. Whereas if you're looking at the ratio levels of measurement, when you have a 0, it means it's nothing. So that when you're actually looking at your analysis, you can actually look at the ratios, you can look at relative measures. So example, if you've got money, you're asking participants how much money they have. They could have 0, or they could have $100, or they could have $50. So you know that the participant with $100 has got twice as much money as the person with $50. Or somebody who is age, if you're looking at a 10-year-old and a 5-year-old, you know that the 10-year-old participants are twice as old as the 5-year-old participants. So in conclusion, each type of measurement requires a different type of method of coding the data, of analyzing the data, interpreting the data. And you will be getting more instructions later on in the course to actually understand how you're supposed to deal with different types of data. And we also encourage you to look at the primer on population health. That is a great resource for an introduction to public health concepts, and it's an online primer, and we provide the link to that primer for you to look at. Thank you very much.